Item 10D is receive a report on Measure A Highway Program Cycle 1 funding and adopt a resolution supporting the widening of State Route 35 from Interstate 280 to Sneath Lane project and submitting an application for Measure A Highway Program Cycle 1 funding for the project.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, I have Tina Sheng with me, who basically did the hard work of and developing the application for these two grant programs. Back in 88 and then consequently in 04, the residents of San Mateo County passed a health cents sales tax, countywide sales tax, to address the transportation need in the county. This call for projects is the first call for project under this new Measure A funding, and is for a total of $104 million. This $104 million is a combination of the old Measure A and the new Measure A funding. The old Measure A had a certain list of projects, and only just those projects were eligible for Measure A funding. And the new Measure A program was developed the same way, has a certain list of projects, which projects are eligible for this funding. The new Measure A also has a new component, has a so-called supplemental type of projects included in the funding, that even some projects can apply for this new Measure A funding if they have regional importance and will make a big difference in addressing region-wide transportation issues. The projects under consideration tonight, SR 35 and also 380, are not included in the old Measure A list, but they are included in the new Measure A list. That's why these two projects are brought before you, that this is an opportunity, the first opportunity for local agencies to propose improvement of these state facilities and to sponsor improvement of these major transportation corridors. Why improving SR 35 really is important for the city. As you are aware of the widening right now, SR 25 from Sneath Lane to the connecting point to 280 going down from 4 lane to 2 lane, causing congestion during peak commute times. The department and the city received multiple complaints for residents for spillover traffic to residential streets as a result of those congestion during those peak time periods. And also reason why this widening of this section of 35 is included in our general plan of also one of our stated transportation policy goals. The purpose of this project would be to widen then SR 35 from Sneath to the connecting point to 280. The recommendation is to include in the grant application all of the phases of development of the project, the preliminary phase, the design phase, and also the construction of the project itself. Is the intent for both of these projects to co-sponsor the improvement of these two corridors with the city of South San Francisco, having a joint interest expressed by the city of South San Francisco and also by our city. 380 was raised, the concern of safety concern on 380 is a upcoming concern expressed by our residents. Also, the concern was raised by the residents of South City, South San Francisco also, and was congestion concerns were raised also by the agencies assessing after the fact study after the implementation of the mirroring on 280 of Caltrain conducted a after study after 6 months after the implementation of the mirroring on 280, and their conclusion was that the implementation of the mirroring on 280 is not as effective as could have been due to the choke point caused by 380. That's why you see high level of interest for South City from a congestion relief point of view, and also from a public safety point of view. The purpose, this for 380, this would be a feasibility assessment, a study, only just to assess what would be alternative solution to address the safety issue and the congestion on 380. The cost for widening 35 would be $14 million. That's the estimated, but of course planning level, high level of estimate at this time, and would take probably 7-8 years to implement the project. If you are considering this application, you are supportive of this recommendation, then you will have to pass a resolution to support the application. This being a capital improvement project, not just study, and require, based on the procedure, to have a resolution of support passed by the sponsor agency. The cost for the feasibility study on 380 is estimated to be $500,000, and this is the request included in our grant application. The financial implication of this application is, in essence, the staff time required by the city staff to be part of a collaborative process with TA and Caltrain developing for the development of those projects. I did forget to emphasize in my oral presentation that the intent is for City of San Bruno and City of South San Francisco to co-sponsor this application, but the Transportation Authority would be the implementing agency and the lead agency for the development of all of the phases of the project. our effort would be to collaborate and provide information and support and advocacy for the project throughout the development of the project. That staff time is estimated to be for the duration of the development of the SR35 project to be around 360,000, which represent around 2.5% from the total cost, and would be a much lower estimate, 2,500 for the 380, considering that this is a study and not design and implementation, and is much shorter duration. Still unclear if the cost of the staff time could be included or not to be included in the application itself, and if TA could reimburse the city for the staff time. This is how I said the first call for project, and TA still working on finalizing and further refining and defining the program itself, and they couldn't give us a definite answer if staff time would be eligible for reimbursement or not. The next step of if you are supportive of both of these recommendations, then based on the existing schedule in August or September, TA would have a preliminary decision, and is their intent to take for the board approval probably in September of or October of this year. Both of us are available for any question that you might have.
Any questions of staff?
I'm just curious, these are state highways.
Correct.
Correct. And we're familiar with the challenges of improvements on El Camino, but is the state, is Caltrans in favor of these improvements, or is it something that the city alone, these cities alone, local agencies have to promote?
The answer is yes. That certainly, even at the preliminary discussion, Caltrain and TA are basically the implementing and the lead agency. The local agency, both of our cities, San Bruno and South San Francisco, will provide, in essence, sponsor support, advocacy, and of course providing information and working with them, developing the project. But the lead agency will be, and is proposed to be, TA, and also working with Caltrain, absolutely, and they will be responsible for the design and the implementation of this project. San Bruno, neither San Bruno or South City has the staff required for the implementation of this type of project and the size of the project.
Well, all the improvements that we've experienced, mainly on the metering lights and all those improvements along the highways, those were instigated by Caltrans, by the state. Yeah, and I'm just wondering, the county should be, one of our proponents also.
This is a new program, and the first time, based on this new Measure A, is this sponsorship included in the development and application of any project under this new highway program. And was some discussion who is the most appropriate agency. That was the first consideration when this idea even came up of the need or the opportunity to apply for these two projects based on our internal discussion, including with the city manager, to make sure that it's not the city who is taking on the burden. The city doesn't have the capacity to really take this kind of projects on. But was a discussion of the county or the TA would be the best agency to take the lead on this project, was concluded that TA has the most appropriate expertise and structure available to really lead this kind of project in collaboration, of course, with Caltrain. Both of these projects, how I mentioned, are included on the new Measure A list. That really means that even before us expressing interest for the support of this project, they were already included on the new Measure A list based on the deficiencies established on both of those facilities by Caltrain itself.
I guess we're in the game. We're in the game for the time being.
I think if I could just add, your observation is correct. The city has experienced extended timeframes for review and approval of its projects in the state right-of-way along El Camino in particular, our median project as one example. This is an entirely different process and a different means of generating support for the project. So I think that we would not expect to experience that same kind of difficulty, but still there are numbers of projects in the Measure A program, and there is no certainty that our advocacy for these particular projects would result in a successful outcome. This is a very first step simply to generate an assessment of whether there is interest within the local community. So there is quite a ways to go if either or both of these projects are actually going to go anywhere.
Or even I might add that maybe not the whole project like SR35 will be approved. Maybe only just the first phase of SR35 will be approved under this first call for project, and maybe then will become eligible for the subsequent opportunities for application. The size of those upcoming programs will be much less. The estimate is probably between 10 and 15 million a year, and they didn't make a final decision if call for project will be on yearly basis or bi-yearly basis.
Carolyn?
I jump up and down here, but I got a bum leg at the moment. But this is another subject that's very near and dear to my heart. In fact, I even got Caltrans to move the no passing sign up because it was hidden behind a tree. And unfortunately, that hasn't done a darn bit of good. My own son was involved in an accident there years ago, so I feel very strongly about it. And I might note that I recently wrote a letter to Mr. Roadshow in the San Mateo County Times, and I asked him when were any plans for that widening down there, and his answer to me was Caltrans had no plans for it for at least 20 years, which is not in my lifetime probably. So I don't know if you guys can move it up, it would be just wonderful. I do have a question though in regards to this. I'm wondering why is only South San Francisco considered in helping on this? Pacifica uses that road just as much, coming both from the north and coming from the west through Skyline College, and of course Daly City heavily uses that road too. It strikes me that it's more than two cities that should be footing the bill on this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's San Franciscans coming down here too. But believe me, it's a mess.
Thank you. Any more discussion or action by the council?
Through the
Good
chair.
I
Michael.
have a couple of questions I wanted to ask. So I'm clear, the action now would be to allow the city to participate or to apply for the funds. How much do we anticipate in spending prior to being approved for any of Measure A funds? So, I mean, we would have to expend some amount of funds just to get to the point. It seems, I mean, there's some things that are being laid out here, but how much are we actually going to expend before we know if we get any funding?
That is very limited, basically just Tina's time and my time,
Okay.
which is very, very valuable.
Priceless.
But I'll say dollar figure would be a few $1,000s her time. The application was a shared approach. South City took on the burden of developing the application for 380, and the city provided the letter of support for that project, and then San Bruno developed the application for the 35, and South City provided the letter of support for 35, just to minimize the time needed from both agencies.
Okay. And there seems to be a lot of support for the widening, but I'm wondering, are there any anticipated negative effects about maybe increased speeds, possibility of more accidents of people turning onto San Bruno Avenue if they're making a left across more lanes? Have we looked at any of that?
At this time, this was a very, very short time even for the application itself. This is a very high planning level of application. All of those will be assessed in the first phase of the feasibility and preliminary study for the widening itself. Always widening a road will have some consequence of possibly increasing speed. But all of those informations will be addressed in the first phase of the project. And if after the development of the first phase of projects, based on the available information, the city will feel that they are more negative than positive, or will be too concerned about the negatives of the project, certainly will be an opportunity for the city to withdraw our support for the project itself.
Okay. And we'll have that opportunity before we get into the big dollar figures.
Just to clarify, the funding never will be intended to come to the city. Mm-hmm. Probably the funding will go directly to TA, the lead agency, and the city just will support and collaborate on the project. But probably the funding will go directly to TA, and is only just a matter of question if they will include the reimbursement for our time or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Irene?
Thank you. Carolyn and I must be on the same wavelength tonight. I was also thinking about Pacifica and also Skyline College, or the community college district. When I was taking my kid back and forth to the college, that there's a lot of traffic generated by the college that blocks up that. Now, is it, we haven't done that because of time?
Very good point. A draft letter is already developed for the college to give us their support, and will be our intent to approach them this week. The time was very short. Yes, Pacific and Daly City would make a logical choice, and I think even if later on, probably even after the application, if those agencies will provide us with a letter of support, will add to the strength and the power of the application itself. And I will certainly follow up based on your direction.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion or action by the council?
Oh, Is that
This is a resolution.
I'll introduce the resolution. Oh, sorry.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.